Imagine this. You step outside on a crisp morning for your usual cigarette, expecting everything to be just the way you left it. Only to freeze in your tracks, stare at your neighbor's yard, and start cursing like a sailor because every single thing you secretly fixed overnight has mysteriously gone back to exactly how it was. That moment of pure, dumbfounded rage. That's what one grumpy old neighbor experienced. And trust me, it was absolutely glorious. Stick around, because this petty revenge over fallen leaves is about to get deliciously satisfying. If you've ever had a nosy, controlling neighbor who thinks they can police your yard like it's their own personal kingdom, this story is going to hit different. Drop a like if you're already grinning at the thought of karma coming full circle. Hit subscribe with notifications on, and let's dive into one of the most wholesome low-stakes revenges you'll hear all week. Let me set the scene for you. I'm the kind of person who loves nature a little more than the average homeowner. My backyard isn't some perfectly manicured golf course. It's a haven for pollinators. Butterflies, bees, all the little creatures that keep our ecosystem buzzing. And one of the ways I help them. I don't rake my leaves in the fall. I let them stay right where they fall, creating that perfect natural mulch and habitat. It's eco-friendly, it's low maintenance, and honestly, it makes me feel good knowing I'm doing my tiny part for the planet. But not everyone sees it that way. Especially not my next-door neighbor. Let's call him Mr. Grump. He's the textbook, curmudgeonly old man. You know the type. Retired, plenty of time on his hands, and a burning need to complain about anything that doesn't fit his vision of proper. Cropped white hair, always in the same faded flannel shirt, and a permanent scowl etched on his face like it's been carved there for decades. From the moment I moved in, he zeroed in on my leaves. He'd stand at the chain-link fence separating our yards, shaking his head dramatically. Then he'd march off to tell anyone who would listen. The other neighbors, people walking their dogs, even the mailman. One day, my mail carrier actually pulled me aside and said with wide eyes, "Wow, that guy does not like you." He went on a full rant about your messy yard again. I laughed it off at first, but inside, it started to grate on me. Because here's the thing, my leaves don't affect him. Oh, not even a little. We're separated by that sturdy chain-link fence. The wind in our area blows in the opposite direction. There's zero chance even a single leaf drifts into his pristine raked-to-perfection lawn. His yard looks like a putting green year-round, while mine has that natural, wild beauty. My mess is completely contained. It has literally zero impact on his life. Yet he acted like my choice was a personal attack on his existence. I could feel the irritation building every time I'd catch him glaring out his window, or hear him muttering loudly enough for me to overhear. That knot in my stomach. You know the one, where you feel disrespected in your own home. Underestimated. Like someone thinks they have the right to judge and control how you live on your own property. Made my blood pressure tick up. I'd clench my jaw, take a deep breath, and remind myself, it's not worth confronting him. He's just a bitter old man. Let it go. But then, he crossed the line. I came home from work one evening, pulled into my driveway, and something looked off. As I walked around to the side of the house, the part visible from his living room window, I stopped dead. All the leaves that had been scattered naturally across that section of my yard, they were gone, raked up neatly into a massive pile, shoved around the corner, out of his sight. My heart started pounding. Who the hell? And then another neighbor, sweet Mrs. Jenkins from across the street, waved me over. "Hey, Hon," she whispered, glancing nervously toward his house. "I saw your neighbor out here earlier. He was in your yard with a rake, muttering to himself the whole time. Spent almost an hour piling up your leaves. He trespassed on my property, without asking, without permission, just because he couldn't stand looking at something that offended his sensibilities. Something that wasn't even affecting him." I stood there, staring at that pathetic pile of leaves, feeling a rush of emotions crash over me. First, violation. This stranger, because at this point he felt like one, had walked onto my land like he owned it. Then anger, hot and sharp in my chest. My hands balled into fists. How dare he? Who does he think he is? And underneath it all, that powerless frustration we'd all felt at some point. The sense that someone bigger, louder, or just more entitled is steamrolling your boundaries. I didn't yell. I didn't storm over there. No. Something shifted inside me that evening. A little voice whispered, "If he wants to play games with my yard, fine. But he's about to learn I'm not as passive as he thinks." I waited, patiently. The sun set, darkness fell, and the neighborhood went quiet. Around midnight, when I was sure everyone was asleep, I slipped outside in my dark hoodie, rake in hand. My heart was racing, that thrilling mix of fear and excitement, like you're a kid pulling a prank but with the righteous fire of an adult who's finally had enough. The night air was cool, crisp with the smell of autumn leaves. I worked quietly, methodically, spreading every single leaf back exactly where they'd been, crunching softly under my feet, scattering them across the grass in that natural, beautiful chaos. It took me almost as long as it had taken him, but with every rake stroke, I felt the tension melting away. This wasn't destruction. This was reclamation. My art, my rules, my quiet act of defiance. I finished, stepped back to admire my work under the moonlight, and slipped back inside with a grin I couldn't wipe off my face. Adrenaline buzzing, I barely slept that night, imagining what morning would bring. The next day dawned bright and cold. I pretended to be busy in my kitchen, but really? I was positioned perfectly at the window with a clear view of his front porch. Right on schedule, there he was. Mr. Grump shuffled out in his slippers for his morning smoke, cigarette already lit, coffee mug in hand. He took one step down the porch, then stopped, froze completely. His eyes locked on my yard. The leaves, all of them back in their messy glory, as if he'd never touched them. I watched his face cycle through the stages. Confusion first, head tilting like a dog hearing a weird noise. Then realization dawning, his brow furrowing. And finally, rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. He threw his hands up, cigarette ash flying, and let loose a string of curses that echoed down the street. "Son of a... What the... God damn it!" Stomping his foot, pacing back and forth, glaring daggers at my house like he could will the leaves away with sheer willpower. I stood there behind my curtain, chest swelling with the sweetest triumph I've felt in years. That knot in my stomach, replaced by pure, electric validation. He knew. He knew someone had undone his meddling. And deep down he probably knew it was me. But he couldn't prove it. Couldn't complain without admitting he'd trespassed first. It was glorious. Perfect. The ultimate petty win. No confrontation, no drama, just quiet, undeniable justice. Sometimes the smallest acts of boundary crossing deserve the smallest, most poetic pushbacks. This wasn't about destroying anything. It was about reminding someone that respect goes both ways, and that not everyone will just roll over when you try to control their space. Nature won that day. And so did a little thing called karma. If this story had you fist pumping or grinning ear to ear, smash that like button. Let's get this to 10,000 likes if you've ever pulled off perfect petty revenge. Drop in the comments. What's the most satisfying neighbor payback you've ever seen or done yourself? And if you crave more stories that deliver that sweet hit of justice, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got way more Reddit revenges coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.